Hey everybody, Brian with Easy Retriever Training, and today we're going to talk about 5 ways to keep your dog cool in the summer months. Plus I'm going to add a feeding tip at the end to keep your dog from getting intestinal issues while they're eating and the temperatures are in the 90s or 100s. So make sure you watch to the end to catch that. But I've got 5 tips that are going to show you how to keep your dog cool. The second one you've probably never heard of. I stumbled upon it just a little while ago and it works brilliantly. So, if you haven't already, please make sure you subscribe, ring the bell to make sure you get notified every time I send out a new video. And once you've done that, let's go check out my 5 tips for keeping your dog cool. All right, everybody, thanks for joining me in the video today. We're going to do everything we can to keep your dog safe and cool this summer. I've got 5 tips and then a feeding tip at the end. All right, the first tip I want to give you is the cheapest and by far the easiest and the most effective at keeping your dog cool. It requires a $7 or $8 purchase at Walmart, whatever it's costing now. That's where I picked it up. It's just one of these little kiddie pools. Fill it up with water, leave it in the backyard. Then your dog can kind of regulate his temperature on his own. As he starts to get thirsty, he can go get a drink out of it. As the temperatures really start climbing and they need a little extra help cooling down, they can go ahead and just kind of like Odin here, he can just douse himself and take a little swim. So a swimming pool in the backyard is by far the cheapest and the easiest way to make sure that your dog stays cool all summer long. Hey everybody, tip number 2. This is the tip I'm most confident you've never heard of, and it's to use beef broth ice cubes. I went and got a large cube freezer tray, whatever you call it, and I just filled it about 3/4 of the way with this beef broth in a box. Then I threw that in the ice or in the freezer out in the garage, and I let it sit. And once that's frozen, and you can just leave it in there, or if you know you're going on a trip, bring it with you. But if your dog ever gets heat stroke or dehydrated and loses his desire to drink, this is a great little trick. The beef smell and flavor will encourage his drinking. You can stick this in the bowl and just let it start melting down a little bit. The cold ice on his tongue will help his temperature come down, and then the beef flavor will encourage him to keep drinking. So there's number 2, beef broth ice cubes. All right, everybody, number 3, and this kind of goes without saying. I learned this one from my dog almost by coincidence. I just had a sprinkler going out on the yard, and my dog loved it. So a sprinkler is a great way. Turn that on. The dog will go out there to get a drink, and then they'll also stand in it, and it'll cool their underside where they have less hair, and so the cooling will happen even faster as that, not only as the water gets on them and drops it, but as that water evaporates off their belly, especially those places where they don't have as much hair, it's going to bring their temperature down really quick. All right, everybody, last tip, number 5. This is to go get yourself one of these special dog sport water bottles. If you're like me and you take your dog hiking or hunting and you find it's difficult to carry enough water, especially if you're trying to do it in water bottles, because typically my dog ends up spilling or letting more water hit the ground than she gets into her mouth. And so I end up, realistically, I've got to carry a ton of water just to make up for what she's going to lose to spillage. So this little cup, I just found this. It's really, really cool. It's a typical water bottle, but it's got this little plastic thing on the side that folds out and forms a cup. And so you can squirt some water into there, let your dog get a drink. It collapses down and easy to carry either with a strap or you can snap it onto your belt. And then your dog, you don't have as much waste. It's much easier to carry the water for your dog. So if you're hiking or hunting, make sure you've got one of these fancy dog sport water bottles. I'll put some links to a couple of them down in the notes below so you can get your own online. It's a brilliant invention. Whoever came up with it, I wish it was me. But it really does make watering your dog on hikes or in other kind of mobile situations much, much easier. All right, everybody, now for the health tip when it comes to feeding your dog during hot temperatures. I didn't know this, but a vet pointed out to me that when our dog's body temperatures are increased, they're at risk of a intestinal problem that as their bodies try and digest dry kibble, the higher temperatures make it difficult, and they can end up having some real and serious intestine problems. And so one way to combat that is to get your dog to slow down and to take his time. Now, getting my dog Odin to slow down is one of two things. It means I either feed him a quarter of a cup at a time, and just, I'm constantly feeding him throughout the day, or I found this slow feed bowl that forces him to kind of work for the food. It can more than double the amount of time he takes in eating, and that's going to go it's going to go a really long way in keeping his intestines and his digestion healthy during the hotter months. Hey everybody, thanks for watching my 5 tips on how to keep your dog cool. I hope one of these, if not more of them, help you keep your dog cool and safe during the summer months. If you haven't already, please make sure you subscribe, hit the button below. Make sure you also ring the little bell so you get notified when I send out a new video. I'm Brian, and I'll see you in the next video.